still at the bottom of the totem pole. So I appreciate all of those comments. I'm going to try to get Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 out, but I'm going to have to chop it up. Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 says, in honor of Neely Fuller, the tacky, trashy, and terroristic fact can be debated on any African/non-African relationship, like he said. Let me try to read the rest of the prompt. The next part says the best one gets out of it is tacky. Applied to love, work, neighbors, clubs, friendships. It don't matter. Tacky is the best you'll get. That's an interesting statement from Neely Fuller. Tacky is the best you'll get. This came with a link. I didn't set it up. Hold on. Give me a quick second. This came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube. Just give me one quick second to tee it up. I should have done this before. All right. So this takes us to YouTube. It's a short video, relatively speaking. Let me make sure you guys can see my screen. Great. So again, as many of you might know, I didn't really pick up on it at first, but I guess Neely Fuller passed away earlier this week. And this prompt is in honor of Neely Fuller. This video is called Neely Fuller, Tragic Arrangement, Tacky, Trashy, Terroristic. We'll watch and then we'll discuss.
Well, the interaction between black people and white people in a system of white supremacy only comes under 3 categories as far as what I call in the word guide that I put out, the textbook for victims of racism in the word guide section. It comes under the tragic arrangement. All of the arrangements between black people, non-white people, and white people on this planet in all areas of activity, 24 hours a day, comes under the banner, you might say, of a tragic arrangement. And that breaks down into 3 categories: tacky, trashy, terroristic. And it doesn't get any better than tacky. The very best arrangements, a bunch of black people and white people sitting around a conference table and whatnot, the whole atmosphere, the nature of the talk, the way that people interact with each other, the hypocrisy that goes on, the nervousness that goes on, that's tacky. It's all tacky. It doesn't get any better than tacky. It can't get any better than tacky. And if they try to improve on the tackiness, then it starts getting trashy, like the outline that you just presented. Symbolism and whatnot. I mean, they're going to cut a cake or something like that in a sort of a party-type atmosphere. Okay, so then it gets trashy. That's the only thing I can make out of it from your description of it. I'm not familiar with the scene, but I think that would come under that banner. It went from tacky to trashy, if it ever was at the first stage in the first place, which would be tacky. Then it just goes to tacky, trashy. And then the third stage is something that's terroristic. So just what you just outlined, the cutting of the genitals and all like that, could be considered symbolism of terrorism. See, so it doesn't get much better than those 3 things. It doesn't get out of that frame of reference. Tacky, trashy, terroristic. 1, 2, 3. Take your choice. You're not going to get anything other than that. You're not going to get what we call a quality relationship ever under the system of racism. You can only get that quality relationship if you eliminate racism, meaning white supremacy, and replace it with a better system. And logically speaking, that better system would be a system of justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. But you're going to have this, what you have now, what you just outlined, as long as you have the system of racism being the dominant culture among the people of this planet.
That's a very interesting snippet right there. I'd be curious to hear how many of you agree with Neely Fuller. And I know in the past we've had conversations where, folks, myself included, don't really pay Neely Fuller too much mind. But in this clip, I did notice he did talk about military and war. And I do kind of appreciate that side of him, I guess. So shout out to Neely Fuller, I guess. But with that said, let me mix it up a little bit. Let me hear from Jackadero. Jackadero, what's it?
Man, I just like the last one. I don't have too much to add. Yeah, I don't have too much to add on this. Rest in peace, Nelly Fuller.
Jackadero, are you familiar with Neely Fuller before this prompt?
Just from you guys talking about him, yeah, that's about it. I've never read any of his works.
Okay, I got you. Let me go to Buana. Buana, what's it?
I think that Mr. Neely Fuller was a controversial figure. I did read his book. I remember I used to be a big advocate of it because to me he was so humorous and I presented a lot of his talking points. Um, Dr. Fuller was very good at defining a lot of the issues and making clear what was unclear in terms of white supremacy. Him and Miss Dr. Well, y'all guys know what I'm talking about. The ISIS papers. They were very prolific.
Cresswell.
Dr. Francis Cresswell. They were very prolific people in defining what the problem is. And now people are coming after them. People like Tim Wise, them. They are, and this lady called Batalori or something like that. They have taken up the task of trying to define white supremacy and all these kinds of ideas after the fact. And it's funny how the dominant society now looks at people like Tim Wise and Dr. Badaloria now to talk about these issues of white supremacy. When back in the day, Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Cresswell were scorned for even trying to define the problem as these people currently do it. I find that to be interesting. But I think that Dr. Neely Fuller had some good ideas. Dr. Fuller had some ideas which was not so good mentally for the mindset of people. I think that a lot of the ideas that Neely Fuller talked about was very defeatist. Is very defeatist, and my teachers would not necessarily go along with a lot of the things that Mr. Lee Fuller was proponent of. Interestingly, though, this is when you hear the term FBA. FBA doesn't have a leader. They say the code is the leader. The code is the leader. And when they talk about the code is the leader, they are referring to Neely Fuller's pivotal book, The Compensatory whatever. I can't remember the whole name. It has a bunch of different kinds of names. But it's interesting that FBA says that the code is the book, but they have not read it because nowhere in that code book does Neely Fuller talk about xenophobia and hatred of other black people. Nowhere he talks about that, even though they say the code is the leader. But I think that I would say rest in peace to Neely Fuller for taking up the task of defining the problem in a very psychological way. Yeah, and even though that I don't necessarily agree with everything, we don't have to. I think that Mr. Neely Fuller did his work, as did Dr. Francis Quest Welsing. They did their work, and I think that time will tell whether what they said was in fact factual or it could be just dismissed as intellectual rubbish. Time will tell. Now, since both of these people are dead, the ideas goes to history, and time will tell whether their work is proven to be factual and right, or we could just like put it in a trash can. So I would just leave it there. But like I say, rest in peace to Mr. Neely Fuller for all his work, what he has done throughout the years. And I'm not gonna lambaste the man. I just some of the things that I agree with, some of the things not so much. I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that, Bwana. Yeah, I feel similar to you, and I think Trigger Happy is saying the same thing. I thought he says, I guess Trigger is saying I liked his emphasis on people activity the most when I ever listened to anything from him. I kind of did like the stops thing that he had. Um, but largely I agree with KW7. Shout out to KW7 who's out in the chat. He says Neely Fuller Jr. gave the framework for white hegemony, but never gave no solutions as to end white hegemony. And I guess in Fuller's mind, the stops thing was a solution, but that to me was more so like Buana pointed out, the code of conduct for black communities, amongst one another. So that's how I viewed that. I never saw him as giving a solution per se, as KW7 would put it, to white hegemony.
He said replace. He said replace the system of white supremacy with justice. How does one go about doing that? Especially when you're ready to train your people to believe and think that nothing could be done without the white supremacists. How? So you're telling disempowered people or people who you say is in a prison of white supremacy to replace the system with justice. How does one go about doing that? How does one go? And the how is the important feature in the whole exegesis of his conversations. You define the problem, but and then you say replace the problem with this, but you don't give people an explanation of how do you go about methodically doing that. And I think that for me, that'll stand out as far as his work is concerned. But I think that he had something to say. He had something to say. I'll leave it.
With that said, thank you, Juan. With that said, from Anthony. Anthony, what say you?
Yeah, okay, yeah. First of all, I want to say, rest in peace, Mr. Neely Fuller. You know what I'm saying? We go get him that much. Rest in peace. He went on to join the ancestors. Yeah, I'm just like you brothers, man. Never really, I never really followed him, and I've listened to him, and he does a great job at analyzing. And if you think about it real quick. You know, okay, even though it may not have been his intention, what he wanted, Neely Fuller is the great granddaddy of these FBA people. You know what I'm saying? He's the great granddaddy. You have to put it in context. He's their great granddaddy. Every time you hear Tariq Nasheed talk, what's one of the first things come out his mouth? He's talking about racism, white supremacy. That same concept that Neely Fuller made popular. Racism, white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, he don't give you no solutions. Now, what he just said then, we talk about you got to replace the system. But I mean, okay, you look at that on one level, but the real level, the only way to replace that system is you got to kill the perpetrator of the system. And in Neely Fuller's mind, that was something that we can't do. We outnumber, we outgun, like you said, a defeatist mentality. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I always thought about. I said, this is some defeatist shit. And that's why I never could get behind, some of the things that he talked about. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, we really don't need, okay, it's good you analyze the system and showed us what it is. But hell, we done live the system. We know what the hell it is. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, see, to me, when you think of, this is the reason why I say he's the FBA grandfather. See, when you think only in the context of this American war scene, you know what I'm saying? This American part of the war. You know what I'm saying? You thinking only in this part, in this concept. He not seeing what if Neely Fuller had any grant, and I don't know if he did, of Ibrahim Traore and the brothers in the Sahel. You know what I'm saying? When he talk about this relationship between blacks and whites, you know, and how it's gonna go to TACKY and terroristic and all of that. Well, we see this right now with these brothers over here, with Ibrahim Traore, a big bad brother who's saying, man, fuck that shit. You ain't taking nothing else from us. You ain't doing this. You ain't all of that shit is over with. You know what I'm saying? I wonder, did he see this paradigm of relationship between Europeans and Africans, where the African man is saying, get the hell out of my country. Get the hell away from here. I'm taking control of my own destiny. And I don't think that he's ever seen us as African people in this country taking control of our own destiny. That's why he bring up stuff like get your nuts cut. You know what I'm saying? The castration of the black man in America. We powerless. You know, I don't think he knew that that black men could be powerful. You know what I'm saying? That black people could be powerful, that black people could grab a hold of their own destiny. And so that's why, I mean, like I say, I'm like you, Coco. You know, it was a lot of defeated stuff. And like you you say, I mean, how you gonna tell people what they got to do to overthrow themselves when at the same time you saying they ain't gonna never overthrow this? So you know, like I say, rest in peace to him. You know what I'm saying? You know, every once in a while he said one or two good things. You know what I'm saying? But like he mostly to me was like hell, like an Al Sharpton type figure, you know. Al Sharpton would see shit everywhere, you know, and go and bring attention to it. But you know, hell, how many times you seen him solving the problem? You know what I'm saying? Oh, hey, look, they doing over here. You know what I'm saying? Look what they doing over here. Look what they doing over here. He's like a Ben Crump or something. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, what you gonna do to solve the problem? What you gonna offer us to solve give us solutions? And so yeah, man, like I said, rest in peace to him, man. But yeah, you know, no, man, I didn't really buy into much of what he said, you know, all of that, especially, you know, the defeatist kind of stuff. Man, I knock off right there.
Appreciate that, Anthony. Provide triggers for evolution. The chat says, I think Neely has given us an analytical framework for examining our own psychology in this clip. When we share space with white folks, it's up to us to self-examine and make attempts at meeting the challenges to our own self-determination. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says Neely Fuller is the first Afro pessimist. That's how I think about him. I still think the FBA misinterpret him, even with a lot of his ideas being insufficient. Is there any last thoughts on this prompt before we move on, I guess? All right. I want to thank everyone who's here tonight.